Today's webinar is entitled The Possibility of a Palestinian State, the French-Saudi Initiative, Unpacked. I want to say hi to all those attending from the US, from Israel, from Palestine, and other places in the world. This is Partners for Progressive Israel's latest installment in its webinar series, Conversations with Israel and Palestine. My name is Ron Skolnick. I organize these webinars on behalf of Partners. And in just a moment, I'm going to hand it over to today's discussion moderator, Partners Executive Director, Rabbi Margo Hughes-Robinson. Before I do so, for those who aren't familiar with the organization, Partners for Progressive Israel is an American not-for-profit. It's dedicated to the achievement of a durable and just peace between Israel and its neighbors, and that will require an end to Israel's occupation and a recognition of the right to national self-determination of both peoples in the land. Partners supports Israelis working to ensure social justice, Jewish-Arab partnership, and equal rights for all of Israel's inhabitants. The organization seeks to deepen Americans' understanding of Israel's and Palestine's complexities so that they can better advocate for a progressive future for all the inhabitants of the region. Excuse me. Partners is happy to deliver this webinar for free. If you would like to support programming like this and help us continue to do so, please visit progressiveisrael.org and make a contribution today to the best of your abilities. I want to make a quick note about upcoming programming before we get started. This Sunday, August 17th, will be sessions 3 and 4 of Partners' annual virtual Israel-Palestine symposium. Now, I say sessions 3 and 4, but every session in the symposium is self-contained, so you do not have to take part in sessions 1 or 2 to join and derive benefit from the upcoming session. This Sunday's confirmed speakers include Sam Bahur, Rabbi Arik Asherman, and Allegra Pacheco. Each session will be 2 hours long, and it's built on 45 minutes of presentations by the speakers, 45 minutes of face-to-face engagement with the speakers, and then 30 minutes of discussion among the symposium participants after the departure of the speakers. So it's a really intense 2-hour-long session for those who'd like to take part. The link will be in the chat for further details and registration. And if you'd already like to get a head start, the final sessions of this year's symposium will be on September 28th, and that will be in the link, and you can already register for that. Quick note about the chat and the Q&A. If you have a question for our speaker today, please place it in the Q&A and not in the chat. We're not going to be monitoring the chat for questions. People can use the chat to discuss amongst themselves, but actual questions will only be addressed from the Q&A. Now, with no further ado, let me introduce today's panel. First, Ofer Bronchtein is the envoy for Israeli-Palestinian affairs for French President Emmanuel Macron. He is also the president and co-founder of the Paris-based Forum International pour la Paix, the International Peace Forum. Since 2002, the forum has been working to build bridges and facilitate dialogue between peoples and to promote cooperative cultural, economic, and social development initiatives in Europe, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean region. During the negotiations over the Oslo Accords in the early 1990s, Bronchtein served as an advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and he was a member of the Israeli delegation that witnessed the signing of the Oslo Process Declaration of Principles on the White House lawn in September 1993. In 1987, Bronchtein met with Mahmoud Abbas in Spain, and at the time, Israeli law banned Israelis from having any contact with PLO representatives, and as a result, he was spent 2 weeks in prison when he returned to Israel. We are deeply, deeply honored to have Ofer Bronchtein with us today. In conversation with Mr. Bronchtein will be Rabbi Margo Hughes-Robinson, Executive Director at Partners for Progressive Israel. She was ordained by JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary, in 2021, and holds an MA in Midrash as well as an advanced certificate in interreligious studies from the Ecumenical Institute at Bossi and the University of Geneva. Let me hand things over now to Rabbi Margo. I'll be back at the end to wrap things up. I hope you find it an enriching webinar.
Thank you so much, Ron. And thank you again, Ofer, for joining us. I'm really grateful that we get to be in conversation and to learn from your expertise today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in, and I really want to encourage folks to use the Q&A box. I know a lot of people and many of our communities have a lot of questions, and this is an evolving situation on the ground. So I really want to encourage folks to participate, even if you are not on the screen here. But over really just to ground us, why right now? Can you describe the process that's brought the French government to this point where, I know in a lot of EU affiliated countries and France in particular for a long time have supported a two-state solution in some form, but the announcement of the impending official recognition of the state of Palestine by France is a new step. And how did we get here?
First of all, as you know, thank you very much, Ron, and thank you very much, Rabbi Morgan, and thank you very much for your partners and the viewer and the participant. I'm happy to hear that in New York it's a little bit it's less warm and less hot than in Paris. Most of the country, if not all of them, and for many years, including Israel and including the right wing in Israel, as a moderate one, recognize that the only solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a two-state solution. The other alternative, which is the one of the extreme right in Israel and the Hamas, it's a one-state solution. The Hamas want a one-state solution with minorities of Jews that will be under control of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the extreme right want an apartheid country from the river to the sea, whereas Palestinians and Muslim won't have civil rights. So both of them want from the river to the sea only for themselves. We believed for many years, as most, if not all, the country in the world, and from the river to the sea, two people and two countries should coexist. I was lucky enough to be with in Israel with President François Mitterrand in 1982, and I want to remind you later on, he was the first leader in Europe to meet Yasser Arafat. And then I was lucky enough to go to Israel with President Jacques Chirac. And then I was lucky enough to go with President Sarkozy, and years ago with President Hollande, and now with President Macron. They all say to the Israeli, we are committed to your security, you are our partners, we are committed to fight anti-Semitism in the best and strongest and hardest way possible, but we are committed as well for the Palestinian to have their dignity and their independence. The French Parliament, as well as the French Senate, already recognized the Palestinian state in 1997. And President Sarkozy, interesting enough, was the first president to recognize the Palestinian state as a UNESCO. Instead of voting for the Palestinian to be observer, as they are in the UN today, he voted for them to be a member of UNESCO, which give them the status of being an independent state. Why President Macron decided now? Since I started working with him in 2020, the first thing that I told him, it's recognize the Palestinian state. Because I believe that since the Oslo Agreement, where the idea, and even before, since the Madrid conference in 92, the idea was that the two sides will negotiate, and at the end of the negotiation, Palestinian state will be created and will be recognized by the Israeli. So far, what's happened is that the PLO recognized Israel, and Israel recognized the PLO as being the only representative of the Palestinian people. According to the Oslo Agreement, the PLO was invited, which it did, to build an authority to be able to deal with the civilian affairs of the Palestinian in two of the three areas that are being divided, Area A, Area B, and Area C. Area A is completely under the control, which are the main city, Palestinian city, is completely under the control of the Palestinian Authority, civil control and security control. Area B, it's a mixed control, civil control by the authority and military control by Israel. And Area C, it's a complete control of Israel. And during 5 years, little by little, the Palestinians were supposed to get the control of all the territories when both sides will resume their negotiation. We did not get to the 5 years because one evening of November 94, a Jewish terrorist killed the Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Yitzhak Rabin. And since then, what we call the peace process become only a process without much results when it comes to the permanent status of the negotiation. I have to mention, and let's not forget that since the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister that was most of the time in power was Benjamin Netanyahu. And I want to remind you that Bibi Netanyahu met few times Yasser Arafat, met few times the actual president of the Palestinian Authority, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, and he was the one to sign the White River Agreement. He was the first prime minister of Israel to sign for the remove of the Jewish settlements from the West Bank, and not any settlements, the remove of the Jewish community from Hebron. Obviously, it did not happen for many, many reasons. As always, the Hamas was there to derail as best as it could any dialogue, negotiation, and progress in the peace process. From the beginning, after '93, the Hamas was on a regular basis committing suicide attack and attack on civilians in Israel. Thousands of them died. But the Prime Minister Rabin always said, in one hand, I will fight terrorism, and in the second one, I will move on with making peace with our neighbor. This is I'll just give you a small framework of what's happening until now. Why now? President Macron, when on the 7th of October, we were all under a terrible shock. The entire world, Israel got the support from everyone. Most of the leader of the Western world went to Israel to support the Israeli public, to support the Israeli government, to explain their sorrow for what's happened, their support to Israel, and to condemn very clearly the Hamas and the barbaric terrorist attack of the 7th of October. Israel, for reason that it's Israel, I'm not a military expert, and I was not asked to advise this government, but Israel decided to start the war. In the beginning, we all thought that Israel has the right to self-defense. Israel has the right to go to Gaza to deal with the terrorists and to make everything to release the 242 hostages that were held in the tunnel in Gaza. The first year we were capable, I mean, the international community, mainly is the Qatari, the Egyptian, to convince both sides for Israel to give up, to have a ceasefire of a few weeks, to give up a few thousand prisoners, and for the Hamas to release over 100 hostages. And then, for reasons that are beyond, I have my opinion, but I don't feel like going into now a conflict with the Israeli government on it, because everybody has his own So Hamas is saying that Israel is not respecting or don't agree to what we are proposing. Israel is saying the same thing for the Hamas. In the meantime, close to 800 days, still alive, 20 hostages, over 30 bodies are in the head of the Hamas, and many others died during this war. The result of this war and the switch in the public opinion in the world and in the leadership was that the Hamas knew that to commit this terrorist attack of the 7th of October, it's to ask Israel to react with violence, as Israel always did. They reacted very harshly in each attack that they were getting from any terrorist organization. But I think that nobody thought that Israel will react so violently. And nobody thought that very soon and very fast we saw most of Gaza being destroyed. Then little by little, 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, 50,000, now are into 60,000 casualty. Dead people in the Palestinian side, a few hundred wounded, something like 23,000 children that are today orphan and were wounded, a little bit more of women. And Gaza is more or less destroyed. And let me, as I told you in the beginning, I'm talking to you from Paris, where the heat wave is really very, very hard. As you know, whoever has family and friends in Israel, Israel is suffering from a very difficult heat wave as well. In some places in Israel, the temperature are rising to 47, 48 degrees. Yesterday, the temperature in Gaza was for 51 degrees. And can you imagine what are the temperature when you are hostages 30 meters down the ground? It's not human. It's not human for the hostages, for sure, and it's not human for the close to 2 million Palestinians who have no water as they should have, no shadow, no medical treatment, not food as much as they need. Can we imagine what these people are going through at 51 degrees? It's inhuman. And I think that most of the Israelis understand it today. And I'm very happy to see that the polls, first of all, a very big demonstration of close to 100,000 people only a few days ago in Tel Aviv. Every day you have demonstration in Israel of the parents of the hostages, of the public in Israel calling for the end of the war. Next Sunday, the 17th, the general strike is being called by the people. We will see how many organizations, how many enterprises are going to join it. Only, I think, 10 days ago, 660 very high level security and military people, former head of the Mossad, former head of the Shabak, former chief of staff of Israel, former minister of defense, former generals, former head of police, all of them signed a letter to President Donald Trump, ask him to do whatever it takes to end the war. We know today that only by ending the war, we will be able to get, I hope, still the 20 hostages that are still alive. And by seeing the catastrophe that it's taking place, President Macron decided, for the sake of Israel, to recognize a Palestinian state. It was something that we believed in, as I told you, since the beginning of the 80s. At one point, it has to be done for many, many reasons. We won't go through it now. I don't want to be the only one to speak. It's more important for me to listen to what your viewer have to say and have to ask. But for the own Israeli interest, we believe that it's time to recognize the Palestinian state. And I'll give you a few other reasons. Since the 7th of October, Israel is having a war with two terrorist organizations, the Hezbollah in the north and the Hamas in Gaza, and once in a while with the Houthi in Yemen. But mainly it was Hezbollah and the Hamas. We did not have a war with a state. We did not have a war with a sovereign entity. We had a war with a terrorist attack. And you as American know that this kind of war, a normal army from a Democrat country cannot win. The American had to leave Vietnam. So we left Vietnam because we couldn't win this war with all the casualties, and we know the American and the Russian first, and then the American had to leave only 2 years ago Afghanistan in a very terrible way, leaving all these women to die and leaving all the Afghani people to suffer. But we understood after 30 years of wars in Afghanistan that it's impossible to win a war against terrorist organizations like the Taliban. The French lost their war in Algeria and had to leave it because, again, they were having a war with a non-sovereign entity. I strongly believe that if before the 7th of October, it was a sovereign entity in Palestine, a Palestinian state responsible for its people, so attack of the 7th of October would have not happened. Because a sovereign, I want you to pay attention to what's happening in the West Bank. President Abu Mazen, the head of the Palestinian Authority, is weak because we wanted him to be weak. He's marginalized because we want him to be marginalized, while the Israeli government was supporting the Hamas and the division that Israeli was interested by. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said it publicly before the 7th of October, as well as the Minister of Finance, Mr. Smotrich, who said it just 2 weeks before the 7th of October. It's in the interest of Israel to support the Hamas, because if the division between Ramallah and Gaza will continue, it won't be a Palestinian state. So it was a political line that the right and the extreme right choose, and this is the one they adopted, and it blew in their face on the 7th of October. But I want to go back to President Abu Mazen. Since the 7th of October, it was less demonstration in Ramallah, in Shechem, in Naples, in Tulkarem or in Jenin than in New York, in Paris, in Berlin, or in London. He, with the little power that he has, the little strength and influence that he has, did everything possible not to allow the extremists in the West Bank to act, knowing, not because he loves Israel and he became a Zionist. He is not. He's still the enemy of the state of Israel. But he knows that by not doing so, he won't be able to protect his own people. And he knows, because in 81, Arafat saw what Israel is doing when the second Intifada started. He knows that the Israeli will be very harsh and very violent toward the population in the West Bank, and he did everything possible to protect his own people. And I believe that if it would have been the same situation in Gaza before the 7th of October, it would have been the same. They would have done everything possible to protect their own people. All the Hamas want is to harm his people. So Hamas is the main enemy of the Palestinian people, not only of Israel, of the Palestinian people. Today the Hamas is more or less over. Few hundred people with some guns, without leadership, they're not coordinated, which make it very difficult to negotiate with them. But the organization is over, and they're not controlling Gaza on a civil way. What is left? It's the ideology, the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, and ideology you don't kill, you don't terminate with bullets and weapons. Ideology you terminate by political means, by fighting poverty, by fighting ignorance, because they are the source of this kind of ideology. if we will be able, after the war, to deal with poverty, to deal with ignorance, we will be able to erase the jihadist and the Islamist ideology from Gaza and from the West Bank. So we got to a conclusion that after the war, only the Palestinian Prime Minister Netanyahu said it last week, that he believed that the Palestinians should, he said, not the Hamas and not the Palestinian Authority. But at the same time, he said, yes, we agree that the Palestinian should be the one to run the Gaza. So I was wondering if he doesn't want the Palestinian from the Hamas, if he doesn't want the Palestinian from the Palestinian Authority, maybe he's going to import some Palestinian from Finland or from Norway or from I don't know where, but I don't know about which Palestinian he's talking about. The war will end. A coalition of Arab countries with the help of the Palestinian Authority and the help of the international community will take over Gaza. They are committed, the Arab League and the Palestinian Authority are committed in more or less 1.5 to 2 years to go to political changes in the Palestinian Authority to take away any military mean from the Hamas, to make sure that the Hamas doesn't play any role, not political, not civilian, and not military in Gaza, and then to call for election. Only a sovereign country, such a Palestinian state, then will get back its dignity, will get back its independence, will get back its freedom, will be able to speak on an equal level with the Israeli, will be able to achieve a permanent peace deal with Israel. We are proposing to recognize a Palestinian state, but we are not negotiating for the side. We just wanted to change the way that it was done until now. Until now, let's negotiate, and then it will be Palestinian state. Today we're saying, let's have a Palestinian state, and then you negotiate the future of Jerusalem, the future of the refugees, the future of the borders, the future of security, and the future of the economical tie between the two countries. These are more or less the 5 issues that have to be dealt with. I do believe that if I have to make it very simple, and I will now, then the 2 main challenge that we both have to have a permanent peace between Israeli and Palestinian. Reconciliation will take time. The wound in the Palestinian society today are very deep. The wound in the Israeli society today, they're still bleeding. So to have good relationship, it will take time. We'll have to work on it. But at least to have political agreement where both sides don't resolve their problem with weapons, but only with talkings, that will be a very important step forward. I do believe that the 2 main keys for it will be to give sovereignty to the Palestinian, and for the Israelis, the Palestinian, to sit down and to create a new narrative, a new history. Each one of them in the last 75 years invented the history. The Palestinian all of a sudden discovered Jerusalem. It was not in their history books before. The Israeli as well, they discover the big Israel. All of a sudden, all the West Bank become something that it's worth dying and fighting for. So each one of them is building a story that is promoting among his people to justify this action. We will have to build a new narrative together, respecting both people's history, respecting both people's need, but building a common ground that will educate the next generation of Israeli and Palestinian, and maybe, I hope one day, for them to live in peace, in open borders, and to be a model for humanity of what 2 historical, heavy fight between, not only between Israel and Palestinian, but in the West and the East, between the Western world and the Arab and Muslim world, because this conflict has in it the conflict of between the civilization. So I hope that our children will be able to show us that it's possible to create a new reality. I don't see another alternative.
I really appreciate this very expansive dig both into the history of how we arrived at this moment and like you said, this project of building a new history. I have some sort of very practical questions to fill in sort of the underpinnings of the vision you just shared, which I really appreciate. What are the implications or the consequences of recognition of Palestine as a sovereign state? So, what would be the responsibility of France, the U.S., of the Arab League nations who are also endorsing, right, a sovereign Palestinian state, as you described, with a hostage exchange and a demilitarization of Hamas, a forbidding of Hamas to take on civil, administrative, military, government roles at any future point? But what would be the responsibility of the international community towards Israel and towards Palestine with the formal recognition of a sovereign Palestinian state?
It's an excellent question, and many of them are making fun on saying, it's going to be only symbolic and it has no effect on the ground. It's totally wrong. First of all, France is member of the Security Council at the UN. And as you know, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council in the UN are the one at the end of the process that have to admit a new country as member at the UN. So far, 2 out of the 5 recognize the Palestinian state, which are the Russian and the Chinese. The British and the French did not make the decision until now, and we know the position of the American until now. So by moving forward in September, hoping that the Great Britain will join us, it will be 4 out of 5 members of the Security Council that will be recognizing the Palestinian state. Today in the UN, if I'm not mistaken, you have 148 or 47 or 49 countries that already recognize the Palestinian state, and you have 165 or 66 who are recognizing Israel. Out of 194, if I'm not mistaken, member of the UN. Our goal is to have 100 country member of the UN recognizing both states. And the fact that 4 out of 5 members of the Security Council are recognizing the Palestinian state will create a dynamic. Now, it did already create a dynamic. We're not going to be the only one in September. The Australian join us, the New Zealand is joining us, Portugal is already joining us, Switzerland, Holland will join us, Belgium we hope so, Malta is joining us, I'm forgetting some of them. We hope Canada is joining us. We hope that and France will be the first one in the G7 country to recognize a Palestinian state. The G7 is the most powerful, richest country in the world without China and Russia. So France will be the first one. We hope that other member of the G7, and we know already that Australia, Canada, and we hope that Japan will join us already in the G7. We'll have a majority of countries at the same time. Little by little, the American will be the only one, even though that the American, not only the former administration of President Biden, and I read a very interesting interview of former Secretary of State Blinken, saying that it's the only way to recognize the Palestinian state, and he's more or less believing the same agenda or framework that we're putting on the table. So I think it will be very difficult for the American to be the only one out of 193 countries to say no, not now. Me personally believe that we will be surprised by President Donald Trump. He wants to get a Nobel Prize, and as we saw in the past, Nobel Prize you win usually when you get agreement between Israeli and Arab country. So if he really wants to get his Nobel Prize, he's going to have to put his foot in the door, to step down and to tell the two sides, enough is enough. We are going to help you resolve your problem. The Israeli and the Palestinian at this stage cannot sit down, cannot negotiate, cannot resolve their problem by their own. We are helping them doing so. And we will do everything not recognizing the Palestinian state. but we will do everything. And this is the name of the game of the French and Saudi initiative. We're doing everything for Arab and Muslim country to recognize the state of Israel. This is the name of the game. If all the Arab and Muslim country will recognize Israel, that will guarantee the security of Israel. So the name of the game is to give a sovereignty to the Palestinian and to give security to the Israeli. And by doing so, we are going to be able to give security to Israeli by having all the Muslim and Arab country recognizing it and having normal relationship with, and for all the Western country that did not do it yet, to allow the Palestinian to live in freedom and dignity.
Thank you so much. And then the more immediate, I'm trying to sort of draw together several questions that are in both the chat and our Q&A box here. But like you said, we're dealing with, and I really am holding right that populace is not the same as government. There's great ideological diversity among Palestinians and among many Israelis. But we are dealing with governments here that have grown quite ideologically polarized, neither of whom I think could reasonably described as partners for peace per se, or at least one government, a sovereign government in Israel, and like you said, a terror organization in the form of Hamas. I'm curious what it means also to get these two administrations and while we're not able, like you said, to immediately combat that ideology, that takes time. The ideology is fueling an emergency, an ongoing emergency in Gaza on the ground for the hostages and for so many civilians. The EU as a body, right, is responsible for about 30% of Israel's foreign trade, its imports and exports. What is
Number one.
Oh, pardon?
The EU is number one.
Number one, yes. Like it is, I think it's like
partner of
34 in, 32 out, something massive. Right. So the potential impact here is huge, also economically. What is the leverage that the EU has beyond recognizing the sovereignty of a Palestinian state and Israel's right to security, as you mentioned, to secure an end to this war, hostage exchange, and a resolution of the, first hunger conditions, now worst case famine scenario, according to the IPC. And what we recognize at partners is ethnic cleansing at a minimum on the ground in Gaza.
Listen, the European are, first of all, the number one partner of Israel economically, scientifically, and they are number one partner of the Palestinian Authority. Since the 1993, we, the European taxpayer, invested over 60 billion euro into Palestine to allow them, to prepare them for a Palestinian state, to build the structure for a state, police, health, education, all what the state need to be capable of running 7 million people. So we are the main partner of both sides. I'm talking to my friend in the EU, and they tell me, every year when it came for us to vote the budget for the Palestinian, who is doing, who are the lobbyists, the strongest lobbyists pushing us to give more and more money to the Palestinian? I was astonished by the question. I said, no, tell me it's Israel. Israel interest, it's for us to give money to the Palestinian, for the Palestinian not to collapse, to be able to give salaries, to be able to run some hospital, to run traffic in the street, to have a police, to have a teacher in school. It's in the interest of Israel. Because if we won't pay, the Israeli will have to pay. And it will be around $10 to $15 billion a year on the Israeli taxpayer bill. So the Israelis don't want to do it. So far for the Israeli, especially for the government of Mr. Netanyahu, the status quo was the best thing. We don't move. We leave things as they are. We did not take in consideration that things cannot be as they are. And the 7th of October was a huge reminder that if a political solution won't be found, it will be violence again and again and again. So 2 million people in Gaza today, if If it would have been sad, I would have been laughing. When I hear some of the Israeli government saying today that they're continuing the war to eliminate the Hamas, which is absurd because the Hamas don't represent a threat to Israel anymore today. They don't. But they forgot something. The 2 million Palestinians who lost their house, lost part of their family, are starving for food, don't have drinking water today. What they think, the Israeli, that they are going to learn Hebrew, that they're going to put a kippah, and they're going to sing a song praising Israel? Most of them hate Israel. Most of them have their house destroyed, their family killed by the Israeli. They know that the Hamas is responsible for it, and they hate the Hamas as well. But the Hamas is not part of the game anymore. It's just a little mosquito that is déranger, is bothering us, and is holding 20 hostages. But if we won't give hope, opportunities, changes, we're not going to rebuild Gaza immediately. It will take a lot of money, and it will take a few years. The children of Gaza today will be the terrorists of tomorrow. So, as I said before, our main goal is to fight ignorance, to fight poverty, to give hope, to give opportunity to the kids today that lost everything. So this is what the dynamic that we are trying to push, because it's not only to recognize the Palestinian state, it's all what will come after. And you ask about the leverage. So the problem that we are having in Europe is that Europe is not, doesn't have a common, yes, Europe as an entity, as a body, said many times, we recognize the two-state solution. All the 26 countries that belong to the European Union, plus the UK that left the European Union, so it's 27 together, plus Norway and Switzerland, who are not members. So today we have 29 countries in Europe who are saying we recognize the two-state solution. The problem here that some of the European countries in the East don't have the same strategy or the same tactic. Sometimes we don't have a coordinated voice. But I have no doubt that if Israel will continue this war, if Israel will refuse to go back into negotiation, will refuse to have to recognize the right of the Palestinian, and absolutely for the Palestinian to say it clearly that they won't use any weapons against Israel, that they condemn terrorists, that they recognize the state of Israel, that the Palestinian state will be a demilitarized state. If one of them won't do it this time, the consequences will be very, very painful. The Palestinian won't get any more my taxpayer money, and the Israeli will have our borders getting closer and closer to them, as, for example, and we saw a sign that is quite astonishing coming from Germany, which is the most strongest ally of Israel in Europe, saying a few days ago that we're going to stop selling weapons to Israel, knowing that after the American, Germany is the most important supplier of weapons to Israel. So it's the German who are the strongest ally of Israel are saying enough, it's enough. So Israel should be should be aware of it, and I think that the majority of the Israelis are aware of it. I think that this government today represents a minority of Israeli. Then if election will take place tomorrow, we will see a serious change.
Appreciate it. I want to lift up a question that seems a lot of folks are raising in the chat also about, I know one of the 5 main issues, right, that would be part of a future negotiation includes the right of return. Is that something that is being a right of return for Palestinian refugees and members of the Palestinian diaspora? Is that a part of the conversation right now on the table about the recognition of the sovereignty of Palestine? Or is that part of a later negotiation point once that sovereignty has been recognized and implemented?
As I said before, we are not here to negotiate for the parties. We are here to create a condition for both parties to be able to negotiate in a serene and quiet way on an equal level. We are not going to go into the details. if Israel tomorrow decide that they want 7 million Palestinian refugees from all over the world to come to live in Tel Aviv, it's their problem. I don't believe that it will happen, and I do believe that even the Palestinian Authority. I was lucky enough many years ago to go with President Abu Mazen to the city where he was born. He was born in Tzfat, in the north of Israel. And when at the time, I don't know if he was president of the Palestinian Authority, or if he was the prime minister. But in any case, he was the number one or number two leader of the Palestinian. And I remember that when we came back from his visit to the house where he was born, he said publicly, "I don't want to go back to my house." And the message was very clear. The war is over. We have part of our responsibility. You have a part of responsibility. We understand the feeling of the Israelis, and they don't want to lose the Jewish identity of Israel. We are not planning on coming back to Israel. That's the message. And I can guarantee you, by knowing very well the Palestinian, they understand that it's going to be very hard. President Clinton offered, I think it was a 100 billion, I don't want to give a number, but it was to create a fund of many billions of dollars to help the refugees. The one who wants to come back to Palestine are welcome to come back to the state of Palestine. The one who want to stay in the country where they're staying, they will be helped to stay, and the country that are hosting them will receive some help to be able to have them as permanent citizen. And according to the negotiation with Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and Abu Mazen, it was a symbolic number, I think, of 50 or 60,000 Palestinians will be allowed for family reason to go back to Israel. I don't think that today it's even this number is not relevant. If the Palestinian will fight over the right of return, it won't be peace, and they knows it. And so far, by asking for, we are postponing and postponing and postponing a permanent agreement. And the Arab country will have to wake up to stop manipulating the Palestinian issue for internal political reason. It's not normal that after 75 years in Lebanon, or the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, after 75 years, don't have citizen rights, don't have working rights. They are being considered as second part citizen because the Lebanese and the Arab wanted to keep them in this situation. And in Syria, the Palestinian did not have the same right as the Syrian. And we saw President Assad killing thousands and thousands of Palestinians in the refugee camp of Yarmouk only a few years ago. In all the Arab world, maybe not in the Gulf country, maybe not in Algeria, but very, very little, and in Jordan, the Palestinians don't have equal rights. In Jordan, there are 60% of the Jordanian population, and I do believe that when we will move forward in the reconciliation process and in the political process, it will be at one point a confederation between Palestine and Jordan, and maybe later on, I hope so. I'm a strong believer in Europe. It will be a confederation, even a confederation with Israel. But the problem of the refugees has to be dealt for. Interesting answers we're giving so far, and it can be resolved without having a million of refugees coming back to Israel.
Thank you. I think it's clarifying for people to understand, right, that this question of Palestinian sovereignty is intended, as I understand from what you're saying, to create the conditions for a longer term final resolution. But it's not in and of itself the be all and end all negotiation that Israelis and Palestinians will have to do to resolve nearly 8 decades of dispute and conflict. But to create the conditions for them to actually arrive at a resolution together from a place of dignity and equity. We have time for, I think, about one more question, and I'm seeing a number of folks ask about the Palestinian government. Would it be the PA and Abu Mazen until elections? Will there be a sort of government in exile hosted by or supported by a European country? Who will run this proposed sovereign Palestinian state?
So far, some people like it, some people don't like it, but the only recognized partnership by Israel and by the international community is the Palestinian Authority. It's Abu Mazen. Abu Mazen, it's 89 years old. For the first time, a few months ago, was elected a vice president, Mr. Hussein al-Sheikh. He became as well the Secretary General of the PLO and of the Fatah. So if something will happen to Abu Mazen, he have someone that will take over until election will happen. I'm meeting many candidates for the 1.5 years, from 1.5 years from now, according to the commitment of Abu Mazen, the election will take place. Many of them are very good partners. I mean, very good candidates, but it's not for me to decide. It will be for the Palestinians to decide. I personally believe that Marwan Barghouti should be released from jail after being in jail for over close to 30 years. He's a symbol in Palestine. I know him very well. I don't think that he's the best leader for the Palestinian. He don't have the statue of a Mandela, but he's a symbol for the Palestinian, and he can unify them. He knows very well the Israeli, and he's a pragmatic leader. He's someone who understands until where he can go with the Israeli and what he cannot ask for. And so I think that the release of Marwan Barghouti will be a sign of a goodwill sign for the Palestinian. Now, I know most of the candidates today to take part of the next Palestinian Authority. I'm sure that some new one will come by in the next few months. The Palestinian will have to decide which one is the best. What I do know, that the ruling system will be different, because we're recognizing the Palestinian state, so it will be one president of the Palestinian state, the one who is today the president of the Palestinian Authority. Until now, Abu Mazen is president of the Palestinian Authority, president of the PLO, and president of the Fatah, which is the organization, the main organization of the PLO being an umbrella organization for all the Palestinian group, beside of the Jihad Islamic and the Hamas, who don't belong to the PLO. So far, he was controlling the three main instances of the Palestinian. I know that today, not today, in a year and a half, it will change. It will be one president for the State of Palestine, one for the PLO, and one for the Fatah, exactly like the Israeli did when they created Israel. It was one prime minister for Israel, it was one secretary general of the Jewish agency, and it was the secretary general of the Histadrut. They were the main pillar of the creation of the state of Israel at the time. The Palestinian will do the same in a year and a half ago. I hope, and I'm encouraging that the best I can without being involved in very political interests. And the young generation of Palestinian women and Palestinian will raise their voice and will do everything possible to be part of the next leadership. I wish the same thing for the Israeli.
Wonderful. And I appreciate like what I just want to lift up that we're hearing in your response, right? Is the right of Palestinian people to make their own decisions within a framework of sovereignty under a more streamlined and internationally supportive political system. And I think my colleague Ron Skolnick is rejoining us, but again, we have a few minutes left and Ron is going to sort of take us home. But Ofer, I really just want to appreciate and express my gratitude for you joining us and engaging in this conversation and clarifying a process that so many of us have a lot of curiosity and confusion and even anxiety about. I know for me, it was, a big anxiety takedown to be able to get these questions answered and to better understand the intricacies and the emphasis on, again, sovereignty as a tool in the toolbox, not the final resolution to the many numerous conflicts and points of departure between Israelis and Palestinians. So thank you.
I want to add a few things
Please go for
before,
it.
First of all, I forgot to say something, and your audience should be very aware of it. The state of Israel, up to today, did not decide what are its borders. So Israel itself did not decide what are its borders. And one of the things that we, as French and as international community, are asking now Israel, tell us what are your borders. And according to that, we will see what can be negotiated with the Palestinian. So it will push Israel to decide once and for all what are the borders that they want to have. That's the first thing that I wanted to add. And the second one, I'll go back to the heat wave that we are suffering and the one that the people in Gaza are suffering. I believe that my granddaughter in a few years will look at me if I will be alive and tell me, were you schmucks? Were you stupid? Were you out of your mind? You were dealing with this conflict of 15 million people while the world was burning, while our priority should be the global warming, because life is a danger today more than ever. And today more than ever, the country of the world, because global warming, it doesn't have a religion, doesn't have a border, doesn't have a nationality. If we are not going to put all our effort, all our intelligence, all our means, all our political goodwill into resolving this issue in the next 10 to 15 years, we will all die. I mean, maybe not me, but my granddaughter, I'm not sure that she will be able to breathe. This is our main challenge, and the Israeli and the Palestinian has to know it. The sewage from Gaza will arrive to Ashdod. The pollution from Haifa will arrive to Ramallah. So if we want to put Israeli and Palestinian, the people from the Middle East, our mean, our brain, our intelligence together, we won't be able to face the challenges that are waiting for us in the next few years. We will be in the wrong side of history. I believe, by knowing Israeli and Palestinian, that we will be in the right side of history.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Ron, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ofer. Thank you, Margo, and everyone who joined us. Since January of this year, I'd say French President Macron has become the most important international proponent of a two-state solution. So I'm deeply grateful. Partners for Progressive Israel is deeply grateful, Ofer, that you took the time on this busy day in the sweltering Paris to talk with us about your efforts, President Macron's efforts. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to pivot back, something I said in the opening before we close. If you scroll up to the top of the chat, you can still catch the link for Partners Israel-Palestine Symposium. And it's day number 2. You don't have to have taken part in day number 1, but day 2 will be this Sunday, August 17th. And so click on the link and you can learn more about who'll be speaking and what's involved. Last but not least, while today's program has been free, generous contributions are what allow the organization to deliver these events at no cost. So if you can, please visit progressiveisrael.org and make a donation and check out statements about the organization, other upcoming programming, etc. That's it for today, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
You have
Thanks
all of
everyone
you.
who did.